Greetings all. Back for another work session. Today we are continuing yesterday's project. And that's getting the character document together. Character creation document for Tales of the Harrowed Land. Maybe I should take 5 minutes and do a little update to this plate, right? To my like and subscribe plate. Not to mention the title plate. Maybe I'll do that. I'll do that before I start writing. Because if I don't do it while I'm thinking about it. So last night I spent a good amount of time working on the character creation document for the game. See if it'll let me open this right from this interface. I'll share it all. We're getting some fan noise today on the microphone. So let's move the microphone over here. Sorry if you're listening to this under headphones. Moderately better. Keep that there for now. So I'll go through the like and subscribe routine for anybody who is new, who's going to be dropping in or watching this later. So From the Tomes is the streaming and media end of Fox and Board Games. It's where I stream my game progress as I'm designing Tales of the Harrowed Land RPG. I just recently redid the website, so I think I might actually have to change this plate up, and I'll do that in a moment. But obviously, if you're watching on Twitch, you know to find me at twitch.tv/From the Tomes. Also, if you're just watching me on Twitch, feel free to drop by on YouTube and subscribe to Fox and Board Games. That is where I'll be archiving all this and putting some additional game-related content later on. And then, obviously, if you're seeing this on YouTube, feel free to go by and drop by Twitch. Subscribe there. We do live chats every Wednesday night. It's a kind of an open forum chat. Several times during the week, I stream my game design process. Twitter and Facebook, Fox and Board Games. Tales of the Harrowed Land RPG is the game I've been writing for a few years, and I'm getting up to a publication date, and it's going to be more or less my full-time job writing this game. Or should I say completing this game document. I was formerly at harrowedlandrpg.com. That everything is now at foxandboardgames.com. And I'm going to be updating everything, so I just got the website going this past weekend, and everything should be redirecting to that website. And then we're going to, if you like this, I'm mildly distracted by a chat message, not from this interface. But if you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and follow. I can't do any of this without your support, and it's great how many people have gotten into this and started following me. Right now, I think I'm going to be updating this plate. I should also update the title. Title plate. So FromTheTomes.com will take you to the same website. So everything now is unified at Fox and Board Games, which was one of my reasons for wanting to get it up and going. So let's start that. Every now and then it does this thing where there's the work share. I don't know why it's not sharing work. Every now and then it does this thing that I have to reset the window. It's a little weird. I'm not quite sure why it does that. So it's gonna so it'll show me Photoshop. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna work on this for a little bit. See what happens when I move to a different window. There we go. Scales it accordingly, largely and accordingly. I'll redo this banner too. Maybe I'll do that today. So most people know who've been following me for a little bit of that. In addition to writing, games, I do a number of other things. Music, photography are kind of my two other main creative vocations, creative pursuits, and teaching, of course, game design and other stuff. But I've also done a bit of graphic arts in my life. In fact, I may have done it as a job for a while. This is all simple stuff. So Tales of the Harrowed Land. I might be able to take that off because it's, like I said, this is kind of now redundant. This is kind of a dead end link. It goes to the new developer blog, or goes to the old developer blog, I should say. Or should I say it goes to the new developer blog. From there you can see the old development blog. I wonder if I can get a separate blog going on this page. I don't know. I'll have to check it out. But anyway, the Tales of the Harrowed Land RPG will now unfortunately be defunct links. So it's a weird thing, I guess I could just rename this entire broadcast Fox and Board Games and take out the From the Tomes, but I see that as almost kind of this separate entity. That's kind of the media production end of it, whereas Fox and Board Games is the overall company. That seems to be working for most people so far, so I don't see any reason to change that right away. Guess I should set that Instagram back up at some point. I know everyone loves Instagram. I'm totally ambivalent about Instagram, quite honestly. It was really cool at first because it was all just about seeing people's photos. Now it's like the same junk. Same junk as everything else. Let's make sure this is saving to the right place. Save PSD. Replace. File. Just did a little photography this morning too. Got to get back to it. I'm just so allergic to the heat. I know that's a lame excuse, but man. Cool. So now let's see if I go back to this. Cancel out my work share. Yeah, there we go. Automatically updates it. The magic of modern technology. I guess I'll do the same thing at call it Fox and Board Games instead of From the Tomes. Hmm. If you've tuned in and you were expecting the character creation, that's coming. The character development section. Decided to take a few minutes and do some graphic updates. That's the problem with being a one-man band, as they say. Apparently, I'm that too. That wasn't a dig. That, by the way, that was just kind of a funny statement. There we go. Graphics. PSD. I think that's the same logo. Go back, show you my work. Yeah, that's what you're all here to see. I think. I don't know what you're all here to see. There we go. Working on the logo a little bit there. Unified branding is something I teach to all my students. Sometimes I have to remember it myself. Don't have too many things going on that are related, unrelated, whatever you'd like to say. Let's see, 30 points on 27. There we go. Comfortable fit, still legible. Maybe I should spell the title of my game company correctly. Or should I say completely? foxandboardgames.com. There we go. Save, quick save as ping. Place. See, not sure it replaced it. Let me browse, make sure it's going back to that same link. Maybe it's not. seeing it. There we go. What is new? All right. And I know you're all thrilled by this modern day wizardry. Comfortably fit it. Again, if you pop on here, I know some people just come on and lurk, and that's great. But if you want to say hi, feel free to say hi. There we go. All right. It's time to get to work now. Well, that is work too. Writers, artists, all of us are this strange bunch. I remember my very first drawing instructor, a very talented and stern, I don't want to say mean, but he was a little mean old man back at Rowan University before it was called Rowan University. No nonsense type of guy. He said something really valuable at one point. He said sometimes creative work, he says no one will ever understand this besides artists, writers included, or whoever. Sometimes creative work is just sitting and staring, and thinking. And, at the time you're like, yeah, whatever, old man. And then these days I'm like, I've explained that to people too. What do you do all day? Well, do you write like every minute of the day? Well, no, it's not like, certain other jobs. And that's the key, treating it like a job, I think. Let's do a little shout out. A couple little shout outs. And then we'll start writing. had a couple people say, well, you're doing the streaming, sometimes you don't get anybody, or you get like two people. You know, how's that feel? I'm like, you know what? Sometimes one of those two people end up being somebody who ends up following my work pretty seriously. And I know a lot of my friends, real life friends, have popped on here too and had a chance to chat. We don't normally get a chance to sit and talk. And it's great. So, you know, I think it's all going to pick up once the game is launched and I start getting it out a little bit more. I don't like that word. Non-aligned. Let me skim through them before I lie. These gifts have no prerequisites. And I'll get to the third one. And I'll be like, oh, look, there's a prerequisite. Nice. I was watching Killer Bits on the game prep earlier a little bit. I guess my only problem with that, I mean, it was great, but I guess for myself, my only problem with streaming game prep is, well, what if my players tune in? I think some of it was kind of, oh, that's it. Hey, there's Nikki. Hey, how are you? So I was just saying, I was watching another streamer stream some RPG prep earlier, and my only concern with that was wow, what if my players tune in and see that? Ambidextrous. Sounds like an artificial sweetener. Sure. Corruptive sense. That might be a 1. I made more 1 cost gifts after some playtesting because people were ending up with exactly that. 1 gift point left over, and they don't really carry over unless I allow them to carry over. Progression cost 1. It's kind of cool. People have started following the page a little more closely too. To jump in on the chats. That's pretty awesome. Corruptive sense. Good way to double check my formatting on these too. A couple places I was vague with formatting. a tough balance between making these things too restrictive and inaccessible, or so easy that everyone's going to have one. So the reason why I'm doing this is to compile all of the GIFs in a quickly accessible document that for character creation you don't have to sit here and read. You know, the equivalent of 25 spell descriptions to determine which one you want. This is just a quick, what does this GIF do? Would my character want it? I better save this. That would be rather annoying, wouldn't it? Tell my classes, save your work every 2 minutes or more if you're dealing with intensive technologies like streaming something and doing other things at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to be really mad when it crashes. I just realized I hadn't saved it. Yeah, I usually put stuff up in Google Docs as a backup. I still prefer to work locally, especially if it's something like this that is going to eventually be copyrighted. you know, yeah, yeah. Again, to me, it's just common sense. I understand people are concerned about security, but I'm also like your D&D stuff. I mean, someone's going to hack your D&D stuff. It's not that big of a deal. Actually, a GIF. It's actually a GIF. All right. I know I wasn't typing, but I was actually doing something in the background. So yes, to get the calculate your pet's level, they can just ask. Yeah, that's how I feel about most of my game stuff. That's for my casual RPG stuff. Uh, I'm like, look, if someone really wants to break in and steal this, that's fine. If somebody wants my PDF of a 30-year-old Star Wars module, that I have on Google, that's out of print, but feel free. Which, by the way, I don't keep those open. Obviously, you know, I send people links if they really want stuff. But all right, test out this new little "Be Back Soon" gift I made. GIF, not gift. GIF. See, notice the hard G, like giraffe, like girl, like giddy. Slideshow display capture. Media source? Is that what I was using? Alright, let me put this in its logical place first. Oh, alright. There we go. I needed a "Be Back Soon" plate. Does it not loop automatically? There we go. Well, that's annoying. Use hardware, show motion, choosing files and active, speed, 5%, loop. There we go. There we go. Giraffe is a soft G. I know. I've giraffe. Yeah, giraffe is soft. That was incorrect on my part. Giddy girl. Giant's a soft G too. I understand. I've just always called it GIF, and I'm not, or GIF, and I'm not yielding. The creator of the format has to be patently wrong. All right, finally back to this. Yeah, exactly. He has the right to be wrong. Not me, of course. But actually, I don't think this is technically a progressive gift. Allows extra action points to start. Okay. Mm. All right. First set done. That's 9 pages out of 53. If I have to. Obviously, that's the document length for a little document with all the descriptions, not just the lists. People people are like, wow, game designer, that sounds like an exciting job. I mean, it's great to do, but I'm like, yeah, most of it's just like reorganizing stuff. Kind of like being in academia outside of the classroom. It's funny when I've like started laying something out like this. Then I stopped doing it. Then I'm like, oh, maybe I should lay it out like that. Yeah, I haven't I played a little bit with the mobile app when this machine was at the Apple store in case I had to stream from one of the iPads. I have one good one from the school, really good one, a new Pro, and the other is an older one that was my mother's originally, but I keep it around just as an e-reader, and in case I want to go to my friend's house and run D&D Beyond off of it, but I don't feel like bringing the really expensive one. Doing it without Windows was really really tough. The few tests I did, I really prefer to do this on a desktop with multiple monitors, and I know a lot of the real high end streamers have like 3 and 4 monitors going, and I'm like, oh well, if I ever get to that point, I'll worry about it. But yeah, even watching stuff on Twitch can be temperamental sometimes. All right, I'll be back in a moment or two. And I'll continue with this. Use my new GIF. Or GIF, as the case may be. right. Hey, there's Bobicus. Hello. Thanks for stopping back in. This section of gifts is interesting, the supernatural gifts, because clearly it deals with, things like learning magic. That's where this falls under. And that's the bulk of it. But I originally had a number of other ones like shapeshifting and being connected to one of the gods or goddesses of the land. And there's no real class. There's no cleric class. There's nothing like that. But it just got so complicated. They became their own systems in and of themselves. So I'm thinking that those will have to wait till some later date that I can really flesh it all out and leave that as this other thing that I will put out at some point. I have all the notes for it, but I started working on it. I thought, wow, this is going to be this whole other game, in a game supplement in and of itself. Demi power, yeah. I mean, and that's always a touchy thing to get into with these games in terms of, um, yeah, cool. Yeah, Power by the Apocalypse. So I've got a friend who's really into these games that are a little more narrative and are more freeform. And Powered by the Apocalypse and Fate are ones that we've talked about quite a bit. And I'd like to take a look. I'd like to take a closer look at both of them. They're both that's really interesting to me. Like I said, Blaze in the Dark. I think he actually ran a really short play of it at one point, or a game that was based on the system. Like I said, my original path in this game was this tension point between, is it going to be an action, more traditional old school style RPG? Is it going to be more new school with more of that flow? Nikki was on, Kepio was on, and she's actually a pretty big Fate fan. Yeah, I think it was one of the Forged in the Dark games. I don't remember. It was just like a one shot or a two shot we played online at one point a few years ago. It was interesting. It was a different way of playing these games. Again, I'm still I'm a little old school in terms of like how I think of RPGs, and I'm trying to expand beyond that. Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure we played some variation of that, or at least we used it as the source. This is the first prerequisite I have. Huh. First gift listing with a prerequisite in this sheet. Okay. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of merit to that. And in our Wednesday night chats, we've talked a lot about that in terms of, say, fifth ed D&D versus other versions of the game and other games like Pathfinder. That the bonus of that and some of the new school games is that anybody can sit down and play them, and you don't have to learn 30 pages of rules or read 200 pages of spells or whatever to learn the game, to play the game and enjoy role playing. And like I said, I deal with a lot of larpers, and a lot of larpers want nothing to do with I have to sit down and learn 50 pages of spells or whatever. They want to just step into a character and play a game. So a lot of them have gravitated to these newer games instead of D&D. Which is cool. I just think it's a different way of looking at all this. Yeah, so that downtime game thing, that's something that a lot of us have discussed. Like, how do you handle that? Like, let's say I want my character to just be a smith, right? I mean, do I have whole stories about the character being a smith? Is that going to be interesting? And it's interesting because I have some players who love doing that kind of stuff. They love having their character craft stuff. Even in D&D, we've figured out a way to do it and not make it too artificial, too time consuming. And yeah, this idea of non-numeric leveling is very interesting too. I mean, even in my D&D games, that's what I do. I use milestone advancement, and I throw bonuses at them that augment the character but aren't attached to experience points. This game, I have progression points. This is meant to be a much more, not quite simulation or that hardcore gaming, like Middle Earth role play or something, but where you do build a character in a mechanical fashion as well as a narrative fashion. But the two interact, and that's kind of my goal, is to have both elements of this start to interact, where the narrative and the mechanical feed off each other, and they're not exclusive of each other. Because that's the other trap I think people fall into, especially with a lot of old school games. So the art RPG is really interesting. I haven't really investigated them, but I was actually working on a quick two-person game that I just kind of have this vague idea for. It's competitive, but it deals with drawing. You know, I'm trying to figure out how to get it rolling, and it's not anything I'm working on really intently. I need to get this done. I have my board game that I'm still working on, plus another short play comedic RPG about raccoons. I haven't gotten that really underway yet. It just kind of started off as a joke, and then one of my friends was like, if you wrote that and published it, people would really buy it. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. 300 pages of epic dark sword and sorcery sells 10 copies. 2-page game about raccoon sells 500. I get it. I also love when I see horrible misspellings in my text, like months later. Like, oh yeah, oops. Guess the spell check. I guess I wasn't awake when I was spell checking that. I see a couple lurkers out there too. Greetings to you. Thanks for joining. Well, past the morning coffee phase, I'm almost to my afternoon coffee phase. So I'll use the word applicable there instead of appropriate. We're not dealing with the appropriate or inappropriate. So yeah, this has been a really big discussion. So my friend who's really into Fate and really into these, all right, he's more powered by the apocalypse actually, but he's interested in Fate and he likes a lot of these newer freeform games. That's kind of a discussion we've had. Like some of them get so abstract. Is it a mental exercise? Is it story time? Is it actually still a game? And there's nothing wrong with any of it. I mean, I played Amber Diceless years ago. I played in a Castle Falkenstein LARP that was literally just storytelling. When the two characters meet, there were some conditions, but you had to describe the outcome of the encounter in a narrative form, and it was really cool. When I sit down to play a tabletop game, I tend to like it to be a game with rules. I like to have something to latch on to. I like to have a baseline. And people say to me, well, what about homebrew? And I'm like, well, homebrew is great if you've run with the same group for years and everyone knows each other. Even when I run D&D for my regular group, I stick to the rule book. I mean, I'll allow some things like I think we were talking a few weeks ago, Nikki, that my one friend has her cosmetic pet. Her little miniature bear that's like kind of the star of the party, like one of the keystones of the party, and it doesn't do anything. It's just there, and there's no real rules for it. It's just this narrative object, which is great because it's fun. She has a lot of fun with it. But when it comes down to things like how spells work and how combat works, I'm like, nah, there's no rule of cool here. Like, this is a rule for a reason. It's fine to let cool and narrative shape this. But if it comes to like the life and death of a character, like I don't like to just make it up as I go along. I want an actual structure there. Right. Well, so we talked about this in your one game project or your one art project in my design class where you were working on these illustrations of your characters. Oh, that was really cool because none of them were human. That was the coolest part. There were all these strange kind of chimeric things, and I was like, this is pretty cool. When you're like, oh yeah, they're my characters, I'm like, huh, all right, nice. What was the purchase cost on this one? I think what's interesting though, and it's kind of cool. We keep circling back to the same topic through the Wednesday night chats and through the daytime work chats when people come on. Is like, what is an RPG? And at this point, that's such a broad thing, and people come at it from all these different backgrounds and interests, and it's no longer just me and my friends at 15 in the '80s, sitting around listening to Iron Maiden and playing Dungeons and Dragons First Ed, and mostly the same sorts of dudes you meet everywhere when you go to a game convention with very little variation. The game world is so big now, and people are bringing so many different things to it, which again I think is fantastic. When I first started these, one of my friends was like, acquaintance friend was like, "Oh, are you one of those guys that talks about, like how bad new gaming sucks?" I'm like, why would I do that? Like, I'm thrilled to see different types of people play these games and bring cool stuff to it. That's kind of cool. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff out there for solo gaming now. Do you do you have the option of playing it with multiple people in a traditional RPG format though? Not that you want to, but waking up early by wily cats. I haven't been able to shake it. Hmm. Literature. Yeah. Okay, that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's cool. Again, it's this kind of subset of what an RPG is in some ways shifted for people with a really specific skill, interest, and genre. I think a lot of people are intimidated by stuff like that because they say I can't draw or I can't write, and I get that. But I think for that reason these things have this really specific appeal. I like to use the word seems to, and I realize that's usually not even appropriate because usually it just happens. No, it's happening. It's not seeming to happen. Programmer art. Oh, I'm a little familiar with that. Yeah. Oh, trust me. Yeah. Well, this goes back to a discussion I'm having simultaneously with other creatives that when you start getting into a production end of things, aimlessly creative. Oh, hey, how are you going? How are you doing? So I'm working on my own pen and paper role tabletop. Well, not necessarily pen and paper, tabletop role playing game. I come from a game design, an academic game design, art, and writing background, and several of the people in chat today are artists, programmers. In fact, Nikki Kaipo is a Capio. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Is a former student of mine. So I'm just streaming my work sessions, and I'm doing it really just to give people an insight into how I think, how I process. Welcome, by the way, aimlessly creative, and to kind of give Capo. Okay, thanks. So I was right the first time. Then I kept kind of like mutating it. Not only to kind of give people an insight into the progress and get these ideas for the game I'm working on out there, which you can read all about. Capo, yeah. But I'm also doing it to kind of get some accountability. I basically have a sabbatical off for a year in which I'm getting paid to work on a project, and this is the project. So this is a good way to keep me honest and keep me working at it. I usually spam the link at the beginning and end, but I'll put it out there now. Everything is now available at foxandboardgames.com. Of course, if you're interested, please subscribe or follow this channel and head over to the YouTube. And I have Fox and Board Games at YouTube as well. Capo, yeah. So I just had another discussion. That was also simultaneous discussion. Thanks. Yeah, it was, I joke around and I say, I think they gave it to me because they just had no clue what I was talking about. And they were just like, okay, yeah, here, take it. Go do something, Like the three people that were on my committee, and they were all really cool. They were of varying levels of engagement on it. One of them clearly had some idea of what gaming was. And I've talked to this instructor, this professor a little bit, and I think she probably like played D&D in college or something, We've talked a little bit about like different kinds of music that we're into, and there's definitely some mutual crossover, but we're not in the same department. The other two were just totally like, I have no idea what you're doing. But part of the reason why I've granted the sabbatical is because granted this project for this game, because it is a fantasy role-playing game. It's sword and sorcery, it's dark fantasy, it's all this, but I've based a lot of the world building in real world ancient history research, and let's say from Fertile Crescent up to the Roman era, and the cultures there, and a lot of the cultures in this game and the language are rooted in this real world research. So that really caught their interest, and the fact it's not Eurocentric, the fact that it does deal with South Asian, African, North African, Mediterranean, early Mediterranean cultures and mythologies, or analog cultures and mythologies. That was really interesting to them. So, and I also do intend to publish some of this research in another form that is, more academic. But it was kind of cool having people treat something that is typically not thought of as academic. I teach game design at the school too, and graphic arts. So, it wasn't like I just walked in and was like, oh yeah, I have this idea. And they were able to see some of the progress already. Right now is the very gamey stuff, though. I'm building the character creation document, and I am going through and I'm making a list of the things characters can buy with their starting points and kind of getting it organized. So today's not a very exciting day. It's cool. I'm getting some people dropping in. Hello, welcome. I'll keep going for a little bit if I have people who are hanging out and chatting and watching. And I've been working on this game for a while, just about 3 years publicly, and a little bit before that in terms of research. And before that, I wrote a large amount of the world building and game content for another product called Blight Realms, which is still kind of floating out there in space. We went on hiatus for a number of reasons, real world reasons. By the way, capos are also used to tune hurdy-gurdy strings. I had no idea you could put capos in a hurdy-gurdy until I purchased one. And then I didn't buy them. And then I like watched my instructor do a demonstration, and I was like, I should have bought capos. You can instantly change the tuning of the strings. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I wouldn't have to sit and retune everything. I'm like, that's so cool. I knew what you did with guitar. I play a very little bit of guitar, but so I knew conceptually what a capo did. But I was like, I never even thought that you could put one on a medieval stringed instrument. That's pretty interesting. Generation. And now comes the fun part: the attribute paths and the combat styles. These are big. It's like 50 pages worth that I have to sift through. I know, tough job, right? I'm going to sit home and sift through role playing game stuff. How do I even articulate this? Yeah, it pitch shifts. Well, yeah, and I understood this in terms of a guitar because I've taken guitar lessons and I play like just a little bit of blues and a little bit of metal guitar. Not enough to even call myself guitarist. Like I play around with the guitar, which I like. But when I decided to get into the hurdy-gurdy, it didn't dawn on me. And I know each instrument has a set of each instrument's tuned to a certain key, has a number of strings that align to that key. Basics are one or two. Mine's two. Some of them are four and six. They're these huge machines, It didn't even dawn on me you could put a capo on some of the strings to just instantly get two more keys out of this thing. And I was like, ah. So I've been actually talking to her and a good friend of mine who does a lot of historic instrument repair and reconstruction about how could we put capos on this existing machine. I've thought about doing streams of my practicing the hurdy-gurdy as well. Practicing the bagpipes is a little difficult because it's definitely not the same. If you hear this thing here, they don't translate very well on streaming unless I do my entire studio setup here, which I guess I could do, but that'd be a totally different stream for my tabletop gaming. Okay. We're talking about the Iron Man path. It was so tempting to steal the Riddle of Steel line from Conan, but I was like, nah, that's blatant. So I paraphrased it. What a good writer borrows, a great writer steals. Tribute paths. All right. I forget, Nikki. Do you play an instrument? I know your partner does. Guitar, right? I can't remember if you played something too. Occasionally I slip into D&D lingo here. Ability score. No, they're not called ability scores. Yeah, those might be synth too. I don't know. There's a lot of medieval and historic musicians I know who actually are getting work making soundtracks for video games. But yeah, you can mix things now so that it's very subtle. That it's not an overbearing experience. The hurdy-gurdy is actually the one I have too. It's a modern instrument. It's built by Michelina Malles, who's played with Elvedi. She's doing her own project now. But it's very melodious and harmonious, but it's also very dark sounding, which is cool. Like her instruments are kind of made to be more heavy metal sounding, more modern, but you can still play traditional stuff on them. It sounds very medieval and very dark, and but it's very very nice sounding. Bagpipes are bagpipes. Even my quiet bagpipe is hard to be in the same room with if it's closed up. I have a little small pipe, but the triangle, yeah. Well, hey, if you can keep a rhythm, you could play a triangle, and don't laugh at that. I forget what I saw. I saw some ensemble, like a folk ensemble or historic ensemble, and the triangle was like actually this huge part of the music. Like you were like, and that was the whole joke. Oh, here's so and so on the triangle. But then when you heard the music, you're like, wow, yeah. Keyboard guitar is common. My dude who's the leader of the band that's on hiatus right now. That's his thing. He's an amazing guitarist. And he's also almost 60, so or is he 60? He's been doing this a while. He's been doing this since he was a teenager. But he also plays keyboard really well. He wants to play the pipes too. He wants to get one of the electronic red pipe sets, which they're pretty cool. I've played around with them. It's more like playing a synthesizer in the form of a pipe. It's interesting. Like, it's easy. I don't feel exhausted after doing this for an hour. It's always in tune, which is usually your challenge. Okay. Mental acuity or force of will. Yeah, I really like the guitar, but to me, the guitar, I mean, it's kind of like a violin or piano that think I don't think you ever just play a little bit of it. It's a rabbit hole. In fact, when I started playing around with guitar a few years ago, my one longtime friend and guitarist, and I made the comment, wow, this is really a rabbit hole. He said, it's not a rabbit hole, it's Moria. He said, you get in here, you're never getting out. And I played it pretty regularly for about 2 years, and I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't in love with it. And practice started to become practice. It started to become work. Unlike when I pick up the hurdy-gurdy or the pipes, I mean, obviously there's an element of learning and work that's going on, but I can do it all day, and, I just don't even worry about it. And I love the guitar, and I love playing blues stuff and a little bit of rock and metal that I learned, but, like, this is just this whole other thing, and I've got to spend all this time to get really good at this. They're still fun, though. I still have my one little starter guitar and a nice acoustic I pick up. Hey, if your partner wants a really nice Schecter Hellraiser C1 purple burst, let me know. I would do a discount if I don't have to ship it, and if it's for a friend. I picked that one up. I got a very good deal on it on eBay, and I know I'm never going to use it. If they're at all interested, send me a PM. Hawk guitars as well as right RPG material. It's a beautiful guitar. It's very metal sounding, but it's just, again, I'm never going to really use it to its full capacity. 6 in the listed attribute. In the related attribute. Prerequisite of a minimum of. Yeah, they're nice. They're nice. Nice guitars. This one is active pickups. And I think if I were to buy a higher end guitar now, which I probably never will, but I would now go with something that has passive pickups. So it's a little bit more manageable. I mean, this thing is great for metal, but it would be kind of difficult to play blues on it. Individual. What did I call these? Talents? Is that what I call them? The individual. Where to take all the individual talents within a path. Multiple. Let's see. There, had to do it. Had to put in a riddle of steel reference. What is steel compared to the flesh? Who wields it? all have the same cost. Progression cost 2. Activation cost. Wow, did I not list costs for these? Wow, that's a... Oh, no, here they are. Okay. Costs. All attribute path talents cost 1 essence. Okay. And have a progression cost of 2. Yeah, some serious rewording needed here. Is it just this path I didn't do this with? In case anyone wants a peek as to what I'm doing, I'm rereading some of the original notes that I wrote for all this. And I'm like, wow, there's like a lot of stuff here that I'm not at this point sure if I clarified it properly. So it looks like I just made them a blanket 2 cost per, but I don't list how much it actually costs to take it initially. Yeah. Okay, 2. So at least the battle cell gifts, I clarified that. That's right. I didn't clarify it because it's different cost depending on when you buy them. All right. So let me see if I worded it as cleanly in the initial part, which I don't think I did. I think that's my problem, is I didn't clarify it up here. And that costs less to individually because each individual talent's situational. Gonna have to revisit these costs. Looks a little cheap, but then again, if I only allow 6 points to start, and these are highly situational, it doesn't make sense to make them so expensive that people will never buy them. You can buy them later with advancement points, but that costs more, which I'm okay with that too. All right, well, I guess that's where I'm going to go with it. There we go. Infuse the strength if possible. It was easier than I thought it would be once I organized myself. All right, friends. Speaking of, I have to log off for a bit and do some music practice and grab some lunch. So I think I'm going to end the stream here today. Big welcome to Aimlessly Creative. Welcome back to Babacus, Capo, a few other folks who dropped in or have been lurking. Let's see. Thanks for stopping by and asking questions and hanging out while I work. Be back doing this on Thursday, but tomorrow night there is a chat at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Twitch. That it should be in the schedule. I don't know if I updated the topic, but the topic for this week is going to be problem players. And it's a dicey topic because your problem player is not always the problem. And that's one thing we're going to discuss. Sometimes they are the problem. So hopefully you'll stop in for that and chat about that for an hour or so tomorrow night, tomorrow evening, depending where you're at. And I'll do my usual. Some of you I see have already gone ahead and subscribed, and I think that's awesome. Thanks very much. So if you like what you see here, if you want to keep supporting me and my creative endeavors and the game, from the tomes, obviously if you're on Twitch, you know where I'm at. And if you've seen it on YouTube, feel free to drop by the Twitch feed and stop in and subscribe. Or if you're watching this live on Twitch, feel free to go to the YouTube and subscribe there. Everything that I'm working on can be seen at foxandboargames.com, Twitter and Facebook at foxandboargames. And as always, thank you for the support. And hopefully I'll see you later in the week or at some point in the future.